Yeah, I think first of all, I'd say I've probably been lucky in that I was working out the other day. I think I've been to different churches in about 30 different countries now, so I've got quite, as Peter said, I've got quite a lot of experience of visiting churches. Recently I've actually been out to some of the churches in the old Lothian Presbytery have had very successful twinning links with the Church of North India and the Diocese of the Eastern Himalayas. One of the things we were talking about is just, if you're having those sort of twinning links, what's the best way to keep them going? And I think actually having regular contact with your partners is very important. We sort of decided, we weren't sure if once a week was too much or if once a month was sufficient, but I think the key thing is it is regular, and obviously any partnership, there are two partners there, and it's up to them to decide what works for them, I think so. But I certainly find now that with modern technology, you hear far more often from people abroad than in the past.
And WhatsApp may be better than emails?
Yeah, I generally find that most people, particularly friends abroad, are far more attached to WhatsApp than email. You're more likely to get a reply. It's also much easier to share photographs or a short video. I think I found in some places that unless people have a job in an office, that they might not actually have a laptop or a computer at home. But most people do seem to be connected. Yeah, the Church of Scotland model that we've been using, the twinning links here have been going for over 25 years, and that worked on the basis that each parish here would have their own designated twinning coordinator and with a reciprocal person in India, and it's been up to them really to keep the relationships going, and that does seem to work quite well. I think it's also helpful for other members of the congregation because they then know who's the contact for somebody overseas or in another country, and can use that to help pass on messages as well.
One of the things that Bill and I were having a chat about is the average age in our countries, just how old we're getting in this country and how many young people there are in developing countries. And Bill, you were suggesting it might be an idea to pass on that contact link to a younger person.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of people here who are very committed twinning coordinators. I know some of them have been in post since we first set up the links with Northern India here 25 years ago. There's not a nudge for people to retire, but I think this is also something that younger people in the congregation can get behind and get involved in. I was telling Peter that I was out in Nigeria the other year, and things are just so different in many parts of the world. Nigeria has a population of over 200 million now, and 70% of them are under 20, so it's a totally different demographic from how we are operating in Scotland at the moment. Yeah, I suppose this seems very simple, but I think it's a very important part of any relationship, just to first of all, encourage members of the congregation to remember friends overseas in their prayers, and also as part of public worship, we regularly think about our friends. We're twinned with a parish called Naxalbari in India, so we will remember them in our prayers, and I know that they think about Traprain and include us in their prayers as well.
Certainly my experience in Africa and Bill's in India is that the primary school and the church are next door to each other.
Yeah, that was certainly the case in Naxalbari, where the church and the school are basically in the same compound, share a common area between them. And when I was talking to the teachers in the school, I think they had previously set up a link with the primary school at Stevenson. So I think it's good if you can possibly extend any contact, just not think purely about church to church, but to think about other links in the community. The new twinning coordinator in Naxalbari is actually a pig farmer, and we have a couple of pig farms in our parish, so that's again is another good connection, another thing that people can talk and share about. One of the things I found really interesting, and not long back from a different trip to visit churches in the Caribbean and talking to teachers there, and I was also lucky enough to have a chat with the Education Minister, is that actually teachers in other parts of the world seem to be experiencing the same issues in trying to teach young people as we were finding here. One of the head teachers in India was saying that they're finding it more difficult to maintain discipline in the schools. They're having problems with young people having mobile phones and maybe not paying attention, which is a very similar agenda to, I know, a lot of teachers in Scotland are speaking about at this time. So I think, again, it's useful to find other common experiences that people might want to explore together, and possibly might be able to help each other solve some of those problems. Peter and I had a bit of chat before this interview, and I was saying I think it's good if people have got some finance that they can help each other, but I wouldn't say that as the key thing to think about in this relationship. It's one of the things that, as I say, if you can possibly help, I know it would be welcomed. I think the other thing that's very important, and I found this with one of my first overseas contacts, who was actually a young teacher in Zambia, and we discovered that his school didn't have any computers, and he was on a visit to Scotland. So a few of us it was actually at my mother's church, we had volunteered. We said to him, look, we're more than happy, we can help you get some computers when you go back. And the response was actually very interesting, because then he came back immediately saying, well, that was very nice, but actually, if you don't mind, I'd rather have a couple of cows, because he was saying the girls in the school were actually hungry, and the most important thing for him was to actually feed the children rather than move on to IT equipment. So it's one of the things I've learned, and I've found that very much travelling across the world, that, to actually try and drill down and find out what are the real local needs, not to assume that we know best and we know what people will need. And it was actually we had a very similar conversation in Naxalbari, where the head teacher was saying, we're actually doing okay, we've got some computers, we've got broadband, but actually we need some more desks. We'd like to improve actually the infrastructure in the school. They actually want to build proper walls between the classrooms rather than just having some corrugated iron. So I think if you are thinking about helping, do sensitively find out what people actually need and what's the best way to give assistance. Also to think physically how you transfer funds abroad, I'd always recommend that you don't give it to somebody individually, but possibly channel it through a church office or an equivalent of the presbytery or something like that. And I think the other thing that's important is to note is that when I was in India, the pastors and the ministers there and members of the congregation were very keen to see what they could do to help churches in Scotland. They were wondering, can they help by sending some people over here to possibly act as missionaries or to help with youth work or other things. So I think there's a lot that both sides can bring to the table, but as I wouldn't put finance and financial assistance at the top of that list, but I would let that develop as part of a good twinning relationship.
Yes, if we are talking about a relationship, nothing beats person-to-person engagement. It's disappointing that it seems harder to bring people across from other countries. It seems harder to get visas these days from the Home Office than it used to. But visits or bringing someone across surely must be one of the gold standards, Bill, on this.
Yeah, I think I've been, again, very fortunate, as well as being abroad a number of times. We've hosted people in Scotland on many occasions, and personally I always enjoy showing off Scotland to visitors, but it gives them the opportunity to just see our culture, see things are different. I think little things like I once had a group from Zambia who just couldn't understand in July that it wasn't getting dark, and they thought that was quite awesome that here we were in Scotland, it was 11 o'clock at night and it was still quite bright, whereas in their part of the world it's pretty much dark every day about 6 o'clock. And I think it's just the joy that we find, hosting people here and letting them meet other members of the congregation. So if you can possibly do that, the Church of Scotland still has a faith share grant system. There is some funding available. Hopefully that will continue to be available in the funding. And I know wearing another hat, I've actually been chasing the Foreign Office and the Commonwealth Secretariat to see if we can get more money available for those sort of exchanges. I think it's always important to realise that we are part of the one universal church. When we recite the Apostles' Creed, we talk about the Holy Catholic Church, but I don't think we often stop and think what that actually means. I think so often we're just so tied up in the busyness of our own churches, our own parishes, trying to keep things going. And I think I found that having these international connections add another dimension to the life of your own church, and we'd certainly, we have found it very fruitful in Traprain, and I would encourage more people to get involved. I know there are other pastorates in India that would love to have a partner, so if you've not got a connection, and I know in our presbytery we've got other connections with Syria, Malawi and Rome, but it doesn't necessarily have to be India, but I do know that quite a lot of churches there would certainly value having another partner in Scotland.